So it's Made in the Morning here on Alive 107.3. Lee with you right the way through until 9 o'clock this Friday morning. And exciting news from tonight. You can watch Impact Wrestling every Friday on DAZN 1. That's on Sky Channel 429. That's right. The hardest hitting, highest flying professional wrestlers on the planet are now on DAZN each and every Friday night. And I'm delighted to say, to look ahead to tonight's action-packed premiere episode, I'm joined by a man that will be in tag team action. He'll be teaming up with Jonathan Gresham to take on the DAZN. Let's say a very good morning to Speedball Mike Bailey. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I am very well. I've got my coffee here with me. Very good morning to you as well. I don't know if this is audio or video as well, but I want everyone to be able to hear me slurp my coffee. And no, that is not an added sound effect. This is actual coffee.
That is the biggest mug I have seen in quite some time. And I'm usually on cup number 2 or 3 by now. But Mike, thank you so very much for joining me. Obviously, a very exciting time just now. We are in the action-packed summer here in Impact Wrestling. There's so much going on. Also, we've come off Against All Odds. We're getting set in the run-up to Slammiversary, which of course then leads on to Bound for Glory. And if we just stop for a minute and think about this, just over a year ago, it'll be just over a year ago, you captured the X Division title for the very first time, an amazing Ultimate X match. And since then, I would say you are arguably the greatest technical wrestler in the business. Fantastic matches against Trey Miguel, Frankie Kazarian, and your tag team partner tonight, Jonathan Gresham, as well as Josh Alexander. And as I was looking back and what has been a fantastic year for you, a lot of the matches that you've had have been against amazing Canadians. Now, this might be a silly question, but why does Canada seem to punch above its weight with standout technical wrestlers when you compare it to the rest of the world?
So, okay. In that intro, you said a lot that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
And we're lucky because that means that I get to start right off with a very hot and controversial take that oftentimes gets me in trouble, but I firmly believe it, and it kind of prefaces everything you talk about. And so it's important that I say this now. So, right? So please, if you're a wrestling fan and you get angry easily, maybe just turn the sound off for like 10 seconds and then turn it back on. But professional wrestling in 2023 is by far the best that it has ever been out of any era. The talent pool right now all over the world, and that includes Canada, as you just mentioned, is absolutely fantastic. And to go back on what you said, Impact Wrestling as well is absolutely the best it's ever been. The quality of content and shows that we are putting out is absolutely out of this world. And all we need is just more people to be able to see it, which is why it's so good that we're going to be airing regularly on DAZN in the UK now. But to go back to what you were talking about, and I think Canadian talent over the years, I'm sure Scotland can relate to this a little bit, and Scottish pro wrestlers and Scottish wrestling is kind of the same thing. But of course, the most profitable place to wrestle, to be a pro wrestler in the world is America, is the US, right?
Yeah.
And there's Japan is absolutely a wonderful place to wrestle as well. Some of the best wrestling in the world. However, not as much money as in America. Same goes to Mexico for a degree and a bunch of other countries in the world that have some excellent wrestling. But if you are a Canadian pro wrestler, you are a stone's throw away from where you could make the most money. But, there is a pretty big barrier between you and access to those promotions and the kind of visibility that is afforded to American wrestlers. So, I mean, yes, absolutely. All the Canadian wrestlers that have broke through that barrier and made it to the mainstream have done so because they stayed at a world-class level for a very, very long time, because that's how long it takes. And for every Canadian wrestler that you see on television that is absolutely amazing on a technical level, there's 100 that you don't even know about.
How important do you think it's been that Scott D'Amore, how important do you think his role truly has been in the growth of Canadian wrestlers over the past, dare I say, over the past 2 decades that he's actually been involved with Impact Wrestling, one way or another.
He is the cornerstone of that. This is absolutely Scott D'Amore's doing, and the reason you see such tremendous international talent in Impact, and of course there's a lot of Canadians, right? Proximity. Scott D'Amore knows exactly what it's like to be a Canadian pro wrestler trying to make it in the US and everything that goes along with that. But I want to talk about Bhupinder Gujjar, who's from India and is absolutely doing fantastic right now, and would, not be in Impact Wrestling, would not be on, a major promotion in America if it wasn't for someone like Scott D'Amore recognizing that kind of talent and deciding to look beyond the scope of who is around him, who showed up to the show and was good. No, actually deciding, I need to find out who the talent is and bring them to Impact Wrestling, which is something that wrestling promoters, I think, all over the world would benefit from doing.
All eyes are on Impact Wrestling just now, and that has been down to the fact we have, as we said before, great technical wrestlers, high flyers. We've got it all being showcased in their tag team specialists. And I mentioned some of the names there before, Trey Miguel, Frankie Kazarian, who are two guys who have dominated and defined the X division over the time that they've been with the organization. Obviously, you've had that run as X Division champion again, and I think you brought eyes back to the X Division on a technical level of like something we haven't seen for quite some time. And we always hear people saying it's harder holding on to that title. It's harder to set the standard and maintain it than it is to actually get there. When you won that title at Ultimate X last year, you were in there against some phenomenal athletes. But how did it actually feel when you woke up the next morning and you knew you were the new standard bearer for that division? Did you actually think to yourself, I've got to take it to another level now? Did you physically actually feel that extra weight of expectation?
Yes, absolutely. In professional wrestling, you are only as good as your latest match. And that was true then, and that's always true. And it's been like the most difficult and most rewarding part of wrestling is knowing that I have to outdo myself. Every year must be better than the last. Every match must be better than my previous match, which is why, again, I'm so excited looking forward to this year's Slammiversary, looking at what I accomplished in last year's, winning the X Division Championship in an Ultimate X match, and the 20th Slammiversary. I'm not sure how, but I know that I have to top it this year.
It's going to be a massive, massive ask for you to top your accomplishments of last year, if we're going to be honest, Mike. So you look at this, and your first proper year with the company, not only did you become X Division champion, you had 4 matches shortlisted in the Impact Match of the Year. You were X Division Wrestler of the Year. And when we look at what you did do last year, we need to talk about the match. I don't just think of Impact Wrestling's year. I think it was the match of the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Of course, we're talking about that match with Josh Alexander that you had on Impact Wrestling. It was a match that has been shared time and time and time again. And I remember watching it for the first time as a fan. I was getting excited. My wife was watching it with me. I think she truly witnessed something special. And at the conclusion of the match, I'd done something that I haven't done for a long, long time. I grabbed my phone and I went into my WhatsApp group of it's like the lads you go to school with. We all grew up watching wrestling. Some of them have grown up and have fallen out of love with the sport. I shared the link to that match between yourself and Josh Alexander. And within an hour, there were comments coming back and forth. It's like, why? Essentially, they wanted to know why they had been sleeping on Impact Wrestling for the past 2, 3, 4 years. When they saw that match, it reintroduced them to the love of professional wrestling. At what point did you know the match was something magical and it was going to change the way that people looked at Impact Wrestling?
First of all, thank you so much for all that. I think it's a difficult thing to do with professional wrestling. There's a lot of the enjoyment of professional wrestling that relies on the watcher kind of knowing about professional wrestling and kind of knowing the tropes and the, you know, the stories. But I pride myself very much in doing a great job of, and this is the thing I do very actively, which is to reintroduce myself and reintroduce professional wrestling in every single match, try to have it be understandable and appreciable for someone who's never seen professional wrestling. But as soon as the match was announced, as soon as I heard that this is what Josh and I were going to be doing, I mean, I knew that it was special. I had wrestled Josh before, Josh Alexander, who was the Impact World Champion at the time, who is easily one of the best professional wrestlers in history and the world. I mean, when I talk about wrestling,
The best it's ever been.
a big part of that is having someone like Josh Alexander as world champion. And he and I had wrestled before. I have seen him go maybe not 60 minutes, but close to that. He and I had done, 30-minute main events for independent promotions in Canada. In fact, it was immediately after a main event match at Destiny Wrestling that I signed my Impact contract, literally on his back. After that match, Scott D'Amore came into the ring and offered me a contract. And I literally, Josh Alexander bent over, I put the contract on his back and signed it. So, I mean, that match was one that I had been looking forward to ever since I joined Impact Wrestling, because there was no doubt in my mind that it would be received the way that it was received. And yet, I still only feel like Josh Alexander and I have begun our story together in Impact Wrestling, and there is so much more to come.
There is so very much more to come when Josh comes back from that injury, which unfortunately, of course, has taken him out of the Impact Wrestling scene just now. And if you haven't seen that match, I encourage you to head online to Impact Plus. You will be absolutely blown away.
I don't want to correct you, but that match is also on YouTube, on Impact Wrestling's YouTube channel, for everyone to watch for free. So if you're not a fan of Impact Wrestling yet, they do a fantastic job putting so many matches on their YouTube channel. In fact, a match that I had just a few weeks ago with Chris Sabin, that a couple people told me was one of the favorite X Division matches they'd ever seen, is on there as well. There's plenty of my matches. There's plenty of great stuff for you to watch for free on the Impact YouTube channel.
There is loads of great stuff. You can keep it up to date with all over Impact socials. And of course, tonight, Impact Wrestling on DAZN 1. It's you and somebody else you've had an amazing set of matches with as of late, Jonathan Gresham, teaming up to take on the DAZN. Now, I've often wondered this. How easy is it to switch between singles and tag team wrestling? Does having chemistry as opponents necessarily translate to chemistry as partners?
No, it absolutely does not. And those are two very, very different things. However, there's one thing Jonathan Gresham and I have is chemistry. We are both alike in that we are, I believe, the best wrestlers in the world at our own very, very specific styles. And those are entirely different skill sets. However, when we meet as opponents, it's always fantastic. I always learn a lot and come out better. And somehow, as a tag team partner, it works fantastically as well.
If you want to find out who picks up the win tonight, it's simple to do. Head on to DAZN 1, that's Sky Channel 429 tonight from 11 o'clock here in the UK, to find out what's going to be like when Speedball, Mike Bailey and Jonathan Gresham team up to take on the DAZN. Don't go anywhere. Our conversation with Speedball Mike Bale continues after this.
Our mission is clear.
What we fight for is truly righteous.
The best athletes in the entire world are on your screen right now.
This is Impact Wrestling.
It's Made in the Morning here on Live 107.3. Lee speaking with Impact Wrestling superstar Speedball Mike Bailey. Mike, you still with me, my friend?
I am. Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for staying with me. I know it's obviously very, very busy as we head into an amazing summer of live action across the world with Impact Wrestling. And we're going to talk about that. Just saying that phrase, we've got a smile on your face. So I'm going to probe a little bit deeper into that in a second. But Mike, there's a couple of things I do need to know as a fan, and it's a very difficult one for me because I get to do this as a broadcaster, but obviously I'm a massive Impact Wrestling fan as well. So I've got some questions I would like to know the answer to as a fan, if that's all right.
Yes, of course.
Right. Firstly, what is a speedball, and where did speedball and Speedball Mike Bailey come from?
So in one of my early matches in Montreal, there was a writer who followed the promotion where one of the promotions where I started wrestling closely, which is called the IWS. And he described my in-ring style as bouncing around the ring like a speedball, meaning the piece of boxing equipment, the ball that bounces back every time you hit it.
Yeah.
Correct, which is an excellent description of my style. Michael Ryan, who was the writer, has since passed away, which is why it's a joy for me to keep that nickname. Also, because it always begs the question, what is a speedball? And I love that.
Who inspired you to become a wrestler? Was there one specific person? Was there a match that you saw, grew up in, and thinking that's what I want to do?
It's been a very, very long evolution since. The first time I saw professional wrestling was specifically when Kane was trying to set the Brood on fire. He had a can of gas and there were a bunch of vampires, and me and my brothers saw that on TV and we're like, wow, this is great. And like, that was the moment where we decided, yep, this is what we're going to do. We're all going to be professional wrestlers. And it worked out for me, but I'm the youngest of 4 children. So I was the little brother. So I always identified with the little guys, the smaller guys, and I always enjoyed the more action-packed wrestling. So as soon as I saw the X Division and a lot of the X Division stars that are around today, but a lot of early AJ Styles and Loki and Amazing Red, and then went back further in time when that was available and saw like Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid and a lot of the Japanese junior heavyweights. That was when I really okay, this is what I want to do, rather than just it being a dream, it becoming a concrete reality. And then starting martial arts and enjoying that and being good at that, seeing all the wrestlers that used a mix of martial arts and pro wrestling was a big inspiration for me.
And you can see how that's came into your styles, which was absolutely fantastic to actually see how you can bring all of those different styles into the in-ring product. Now, I mentioned that obviously Impact Wrestling is going global. It's recovered from the pandemic. We are heading down under next weekend. The best of the Australian wrestling scene getting the chance to go one-on-one with Impact Wrestling superstars. Are you excited about Impact Wrestling actually getting back out there to international markets?
I absolutely am. Again, I think Impact Wrestling is putting on some of the best professional wrestling in the world right now. It was a pleasure for me to be able to go and represent Impact Wrestling in Japan with the best of the Super Juniors and, show different parts of the world the kind of talent that lives in Impact Wrestling. And I'm excited for that. We've been going to Canada more and more and showing some of the Impact talent over there. I'm excited that Australia is going to get to see it. And I'm excited for more and more parts of the world to join in on the fun.
Now, I need to question you on this, Mike, and I'll tell you why, because obviously we're very excited that Impact Wrestling is now going to be on DAZN 1 each and every Friday night. And Scott D'Amore, president, and I use that in inverted quotes just now, because this was obviously signed before he took a temporary leave of absence to step into the ring. But Scott D'Amore issued a press release earlier this week all about the launch of Impact on DAZN 1. And there was a line in here that really caught my eye. It said, we thank our partners at DAZN and look forward to bringing Impact Wrestling live to the UK very soon. I'm not going to beat about the bush here, Mike. I'm going to ask the question that other people won't. Mike, are you coming to the UK soon with Impact Wrestling?
I mean, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. If you're not familiar with me, it's a big part of my story that I was unable to wrestle in the US for just about 5 years, right? So I had to travel around the world, and I wrestled, for those 5 years in mostly in Canada, in Japan, and I spent a lot of time in the UK and had some of my favorite matches. In fact, this is going to be a huge detour, but my wife Veda Scott, who is an American pro wrestler. So they lived in America, and I could not, go to America. So we spent a lot of time together in the UK, and that is where kind of our relationship grew. So I have so many fond memories. We both love Scotland in particular. We've wrestled in Edinburgh and Scotland both, and spent some extra days there. And to bring Impact to the UK and get to see again the UK fans that I love so much would be a huge honor.
We will keep an eye on that story as it develops. And of course, you can as well by keeping an eye at impactwrestling.com. Now, I know, Mike, I need to let you go, but just before I do, there's one last thing I would like to do with you if we could. I do this with every Impact Wrestling superstars I get to speak to, and that is a round of the name game. Are you up for this? I've got 5 names. I'm going to shout them out to you, and I would like you to tell me the first thing that jumps into your head. Are you up for this?
I'll do my best.
Okay, here we go. Speedball Mike Bailey plays the name game. First name, Joe Hendry.
Believe, right? You got to believe in Joe Hendry.
Got to believe in Joe Hendry. Superb. Second name, Alicia Edwards.
Loud. And I feel bad that that's the first word that comes up, but man, when you say Alicia Edwards, I don't see her. I hear her first. I hear her voice. I hear her shouting over someone. We all love Alicia, but man.
Okay, name number 3, the national treasure, Nick Aldis.
Ooh, I think of class.
Okay.
Even though his actions could be described as classless, blindsiding Alex Shelley with the Impact World Championships, the way he did something so heinous, so graciously, I thought was very impressive and is a very good description of him.
Fourth name on this list, Chris Sabin.
Skill. One of the most skilled wrestlers in Impact Wrestling. Just technically flawless. And one of the, I think, people who watch and enjoy professional wrestling casually do not appreciate the importance of sustainability, right? People love someone who will have a great 4-year career of matches, but that is rarely the goal. The goal is to have 20 years in Impact Wrestling of a fantastic career, and in those 20 years have hundreds of amazing matches like Chris Sabin has done.
They have been absolutely amazing. And the final name on the list, if we could, Mr. Impact Wrestling, Moose.
Moose. Power? I want to say power, but not as in strength. Not only as in strength. I want to say power as in Moose is a force. Moose moves people, everyone. There is you cannot ignore Moose. And that, I think, has been his main asset as a professional wrestler and as a person. Moose gets his way. Moose solves problems. And I think that is more of an accurate definition of power for Moose than simply strength.
We have played the name game with Speedball Mike Bailey. You can see him team tonight with Jonathan Gresham to take on the DAZN on DAZN 1, that's Sky Channel 429, as well as Impact Plus and Impact Ultimate Insiders on YouTube. Mike, thank you so very much for taking the time, my friend. I look forward to seeing what happens down under and through this amazing summer of wrestling that we're going to see through Impact Wrestling. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.